Hi, and welcome to another co-production of The Savvy Entrepreneur and Energize Colorado. Today we have Keith Roberts. Keith and I will be discussing search engine optimization and performance. Keith is the perfect person to have this discussion with because he's been building sites on the internet for decades. So Keith, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me. First, Alice, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Keith Roberts. I have run an agency called Zenman for the last 2.5 decades. From back before search engine optimization was a thing, when aspect ratios were 640 by 480, everything was built in tables and cells, up to the responsive dynamic websites that we have today, and how to make sure that they show up when your customers are searching for your product and service.
Perfect person to speak with. So let's unpack what SEO is. I mean, the word search engine optimization sounds kind of very out there. What is it?
Basically, search engine optimization is very simple. The goal there is that when you search for product, service, definition, term, anything on the internet, the best possible results show up at the top of your search results. So it's getting your company's website to show up when somebody searches for your product or service.
So these algorithms, they're really complex. How do we make sure that we're optimizing our website to show up on the top of the list?
Absolutely. That's a great question too. There's two things that you need to do. The first is the NAP, which is the name, address, and phone number. There's about 100 plus places around the internet that your business's name, address, and phone number are indexed. And there are several tools out there that will automatically go through and make sure that those align correctly. And really simple things like if your street address is 621 Calamath Street, and on one place it was ST period, other places it was street filled out all the way. Those things actually, for the local SEO, impact you in a negative way. Now, that being said, any agency that's charging you $500 or less to do SEO, I guarantee you 98% of them, the only thing they're doing is they've plugged in your business into their tool, and they're probably paying $9.99 or $29.99 a month for your service, and they're charging you 500. So use a tool like Moz or Rush or one of these other, and we can put them in the description below and link to these tools that you can use to do it yourself. Now, that being said, that's the first part. You also need to have the website built correctly. And that means the structure is built correctly, it's responsive. If it doesn't work good on a tablet or a mobile device, that's going to devalue it. If the website loads slowly, that's going to impact it. If the content isn't relevant to the terms that people are searching for, that's going to impact it in a negative way. And also, we want to make sure the content is continuously updated and current, why blogging is such an essential part of search engine optimization. So there's really the three things: the NAP, your website being built correctly, and then the ongoing creation of content that's valuable to your clients.
So Keith, let's say I'm a DIYer and I want to do this myself. Could I even do it myself?
Absolutely, you could. It's just getting a baseline understanding. And one thing that infuriates me with most SEO agencies is they'll tell you, we can't share with you our secret sauce. It's, the magic's behind the curtain. That is no different than the land of Oz. It is fake. SEO is three things. SEO is making sure, like we talked about, your NAP is correct, it's building the website correctly, and it's the ongoing creation of content. And we can unpack each of those in detail.
Yeah, let's unpack it.
Cool. Well, let's start with the website. So building the website correctly. Like I mentioned, it's got to be responsive. It has to work fluid across all of the different devices. If you only have something that looks good on desktop, not only is it a bad experience from your customers, because probably 50+% of them are accessing your site from your phone, it's also lowering you on the organic results. I think it was in 14, maybe, it might be before, sorry, don't quote me on this, but they actually put that in the algorithm. If you did not have a responsive website, that pushed you down. It used to be based on your desktop site, but now it's factoring all of the different versions of your website. You also, back in the day, people would have a mobile version, a tablet version, a desktop version. Google doesn't want that. They don't want to index 3 different websites. And inevitably, what happens is content gets out of alignment. You update something here, it's not the same on all those. So a fluid, responsive website will just scale dynamically based on the aspect ratio of whatever browser you're using. And then within the site, if you have a responsive website, there's some pretty simple things we want to make sure are done. First and most important is your page title. Your page title should not be home/Energize Colorado, right? What does Energize Colorado do? Maybe on the homepage we lead with our mission, but if it's on the grants for small businesses page, then the page title should be Colorado Small Business Grants. That's the thing that people are searching for. The more you can align your page title with exactly the search terms, that's ideal. Then we want to make sure you're getting into the real specific stuff. So page title is there, meta description and meta title. These, they say they technically don't factor into the algorithm, but they do increase click-through rate. So if you search for a, lawn care, right? And there's a description under, Denver's best lawn care services available in Park Hill. You click on that, that click-through rate does impact the organic results. Then we want to make sure we're doing everything like alt tags and descriptions on images, the things to make sure for screen readers, for the visually impaired, for ADA compliant, that we're doing all of those things. This is actually really essential because you can end up with a lawsuit if your website is not ADA compliant. It's not hard, and there's some ADA checkers that you can run it through, and it's really simple things like making sure a photo of the logo of Energize Colorado says Energize Colorado logo. Somebody that's visually impaired can get the same experience as those of us that had to get the site. Then we want to get into the actual content of the website. Your H1s, which is the main title on the page, sort of the largest text, that should align. There should be a certain number of density of the keywords within the copy, and there's lots of factors. And then the page load time. Make sure that the page is going to load quickly. The algorithm, I think, is updated. I know it's updated hundreds of times a year. And if you don't work at Google or some of the other less relevant search engines, we really don't know what's going on. 100%, I can't tell you that your bounce rate factors in, 0.75%. But we do know the things, and Google actually tells us, this is what we want you to do. Here's how we want your site to be built. We know we want it to be responsive, meta descriptions, page titles, and we want you to create ongoing content on your site. We don't want you to jam a bunch of keywords and zip codes into the the footer. We also don't want you to create a malicious link. It's called a PBN. So any company that tells you we can't tell you our secret sauce, they're probably doing a PBN, which stands for Private Blog Network. And so what they're doing is they're trying to manipulate the algorithm by buying up a bunch of domains. So, grandmasquilting.org expired and it had a little ranking authority. They'll purchase that domain. They'll stand up a really poor looking blog and they'll tell you, you can never see the content that we create, but they'll write some crap article filled with your keywords, and then they'll link back to your website. And eventually Google figures that out and it actually becomes a malicious link. It's devaluing it. There's also people, when you get into the malicious side, you can have unethical competitors that try to have a bunch of malicious links point to your website, which will discredit it. The nice thing about some of those like SEMrush and those other services that'll do your NAP is they'll let you know, hey, you've got, all of a sudden there's 2,000 malicious or toxic domains that are linking, and you can go in and disavow them. And that's happened to Zenman a couple times where, some billysgoodweb.org pops up and they want to try to target us. And then the other one that cracks me up is people will target your brand. If you're a leader, right? So if you type in Zenman, there's probably somebody that is doing paid advertising for the word Zenman, even though unless you know Zenman, it doesn't sound like a web design agency. But Google it right now, and I'm not going to say their names, but there's a few people that, they'll say more Zen than the Zenman. Like, well, all right, good luck. I think it's the cheapest form of flattery. Well, for
Yeah.
me,
So
not for them.
what would you do if someone tried to, co-opt your brand?
It depends on the line that they cross. So just, running paid ads because we're an industry leader. Earlier in my career, I would have gotten all upset about it. Now I take it as a compliment. And the truth of the matter is, there's enough work for everybody. We don't have to practice malicious, uh, things to try to get ahead. The great thing about the Colorado community, and really the reason Energize exists, is all ships rise with the tide, and Coloradans helping Coloradans is a great thing. So, if somebody, and I've had this happen, literally used the logo, right? Like they took my logo, just screen captured it and used it for that. That requires a letter. Your attorney is your friend. Get a good attorney. I've been working with my attorney, Stan Doida, for over a decade. And attorneys save you money if you have a good attorney, right? So usually in that case, a quick cease and assist. Prior to that, I will usually just send an email in a kind way, like, hey, you might not have realized maybe you paid somebody and they, copied our logo exactly, which has been trademarked for 24 years. Here's a copy of that trademark. Can we resolve this without getting legal involved? Next step is legal. And then the third step, if you want to sue somebody, and I've definitely got a good example here, I spent $112,000 to collect 7,500 ones.
Wow.
So sometimes when somebody steals from you, you have to think about, is the juice worth the squeeze, right? Is it better to just let this go? Or in that particular year, we were having a great year, and I was like, man, that guy stole my product. We built him a website. Before the final payment arrived, he locked us out of the back end. He basically just took it, and he was squatting it. So I sued him, and we ended up in an enormous legal battle. He sued me for slander because my salesperson wrote an email to where he went to school saying, hey, did you know your student did this, which she should not have done. That email was distributed. People saw it. It was a nightmare. He ended up suing us for slander, saying that we'd ruined his reputation. And so we had to lawyer up. We ended up winning the case, and it cost me $105,000.
Wow. Bittersweet.
Yeah, no, not even. It was just bitter. But understand that, right? And think about, my company's called Zimin because I'm Buddhist, and I think one of the greatest lessons I learned from Buddha is holding on to anger is like clenching a hot coal, waiting to throw it at somebody. Okay, you stole from me. It's $7,500. What's my hourly rate worth? How much time did I spend on it? Just drop that coal.
Amen to that. Take the higher road when possible.
When possible, yeah.
Yeah.
But stand up for yourself. Don't just say people can steal from you and be walked all over. Mike Montero's F You Pay Me is one of the best creative morning talks on making sure that creatives get paid.
It is important to make sure that you get paid, or else someone else might try to do the same thing and rip you off again.
Yep. Setting precedents.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say someone is just starting out. What would be the first thing you recommend they do when trying to optimize their search engine performance?
There's some simple things. So Google your product or service in different communities and your community. And then if you right click anywhere on a website, you can view the source code. And so look at their page title, look at their descriptions, look at what they're doing to rank, and then modify that. You can copy it, put it in Grammarly. This is not the place to rip off and duplicate exactly. When you steal somebody's page title or even stealing somebody's blog or copy on their website, it's actually going to hurt both of you. Google is really good at discovering duplicate or plagiarized content on the web, and it will devalue you and it devalues the original content. That's like Grammarly, where you can copy and paste it, use the thesaurus, change some words around, and have the sentiment and maybe even a more dialed in title or an H1, and then use that. Don't start from scratch, but don't steal directly. Who's winning, who's looking at that, and look in the really competitive markets. If you're crushing for Noodle Bar in New York City or Tokyo, Japan, you're probably going to crush in Denver, Colorado with a similar structure. And there's some amazing checklists. We can put it in the description on just like basic 20, SEO checklists for DIYers.
You mentioned blogging, and I've been told that it's really important to have high quality blog content on your website. Is that true?
100%. So one of the things that's a big factor into all the algorithms is new and valuable content. And when you're creating the content, a lot of people go off in a vacuum and they think they understand what their customers want and they spend a lot of effort writing it, but it might not be actually what your customers are searching for. So use Google, first determine what are the questions that your customers are answering, and then create content that delivers on that promise. Again, it can't be clickbait. You can't have a title, the 12 SEO tips to do yourself, and it's not there. You must deliver on your promise. And that's how you're going to build trust. That's actually, I'm sure many of the people on this call have heard of or use possibly HubSpot. HubSpot has got most of its clients through free accounts. I think 60% of paid accounts on HubSpot, I just saw an interview with the founder, they started as free accounts. Somebody signed up, they got value, and then they've started to upgrade. And a ton of people learned about HubSpot through resources in their, I think they call it the academy or their blog. They've got so many tools on writing a blog title or, even just basic SEO things. So become a trusted resource. And then when your customer is ready to make a purchase, you're clearly going to be their choice.
Great advice. Now let's take a step back because I just realized there could be people who've never written a blog. What exactly goes into a blog?
Excellent question. So a few things. One, the blog has to be a minimum content. So I think the sweet spot is between 600 and 800 words. The blog title needs to be something that's really engaging, and it actually can be a red herring. If you're using that tool we talked about earlier, the Yoast, you might have a long title like, what's the best contractor, seasonal contractor relationship for roofing, right? That might be a little bit too long, but for the people that are searching for it, that's exactly what they're looking for. And then you've got to make sure that you deliver. There's also an opportunity if you want to do a lot of blogs to create some valuable content that can be gated. We can talk about that a little bit later. But the first step is just understanding your customers and then get in the habit of writing. You can either pay somebody to do it, or I would really advocate as a business owner, you just start answering questions. What are the frequently asked questions that you get from your customers or potential customers, and write a quick article about it. If writing is not your thing, record a video. You could actually, if you're not a writer, you could do something very similar to this and then use a service to just transcribe your blog or your vlog. And then you can also host it as a video content on a YouTube channel, which will add to your SEO value. And then you can use that video on your website. So if you're not a writer, be a speaker.
And you can, I've heard the term cross-link. What does that mean?
So let's say I have a blog about the 3 best things that you need to do for digital marketing. And one of those is search engine optimization. I might have a link in there that's going to reference an additional blog on my website. So it's going to cross-reference that, and it's going to be keeping you on my site, again, representing us as a thought leader. You can also have things that value, like I do a lot of writing, I do some writing for Inc. As a blogger. So if an article on Inc. links back to Zenman, Inc. is seen as a huge authority on the web, and that increases our value. Same with like New York Times or even ESPN. Anything that's an authority that references your website is huge value. I am not a fan of link exchanges. Hey, you link to my website, I'll link mine. Like, what's the value? If your content's good, I'm going to link to it. And a lot of my talks, I reference my friend Mike Simonson, who has a talk called Hacking Happiness. His content aligns with my mindfulness talk. And so it's just naturally, if you're trying to jam things in that don't make sense, it's not cohesive and it's not adding value.
And the algorithm is smart enough to realize that, yeah?
100%. There was an example years ago where on Black Friday, all of a sudden, J.C. Penney was like the top result for like black, what are those little black dresses, like the cocktail dresses or whatever. And what they had done, and this was, a decade plus ago, is they had a ton of those really poor contents. It was just all those hidden PBNs that were linking back to JCPenney, best little black dress, best cocktail dress. And then if you actually read the content, it was almost illegible because it was just keywords repeated and repeated. So now, absolutely, the search engine algorithms can factor that in, and that would be considered a malicious practice that would actually lower your results.
Fascinating topic. So Keith, if someone was just starting out, what would be the first thing you'd want them to consider?
The first thing is just getting your NAP in place. It's very, very simple. You could do it in a half an hour, and it's going to get you to start showing up on your local search results. Most people don't know that that exists, or they're paying somebody $500 a month to do it, and you can do it for 10 or 20.
Great advice. And for any of you guys out there who want more resources from Keith and from Energize Colorado, go to the link below. Thanks, and see you again soon.